I understand, but I still will say that creative people tend to hate AI. They just are anti-AI in general. Not all of them, but in general. So when we started this off, we had a lot of pushback, a lot of resistance from a lot of companies because they saw this as you can't do this. Like you can't do translation. It's a very human thing. You can't do design. It's a very human thing. You can't do all of this with AI. And I agree, we can't do all of that with AI. The goal is never to fully replace or fully automate, but the goal is to assist. AI is actually great in assisting you and in taking you from 0 to 80, 90, 99.
Welcome to the AI Advantage, where modern leaders decode the future of tech. I'm Solomon Williams, founder of Solanox. So here, it's no noise, no hype every week. Sometimes it's just me, and sometimes it's the brightest minds in tech, breaking down what it really takes to grow smarter with AI and automation. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Solomon. I have a special guest today. With us is Ashish Jha. He's the co-founder, CEO of Nativ. So, Ashish, thank you so much for coming on to the call. I'm really excited about this conversation. Can you just tell us, the audience, just a little bit about yourself and just your journey on how Nativ got started and what it is?
Thank you, Salman, for having me, first of all. Yeah, my name is Ashish. I usually start by saying I grew up in India. I have been working in the field of AI for the last decade or so and have been living in Europe, different parts. So I lived in Switzerland, then Germany, then Belgium, and now have been based in the UK for the last 6 years. As I said, because I have been working mostly in the field of AI, I have seen the field grow from the old days when it was called machine learning to what it is now, which is everything is AI since ChatGPT came out. For the last 10, 11 months, me with my co-founder have been building our own startup called Native, and we'll go into that in a bit. But before that, I have been working as AI lead at companies like Revolut, which is a big fintech out of the UK, and a lot of startups before, and some big companies such as Sony and Oracle. Besides this, I also somehow entered into the world of writing. So I have published 4 books on different topics of AI, including PyTorch and fraud detection.
Got it. No, this is great, man. And in terms of that, I'm curious. So, have you always been interested in kind of going through from the AI when you went from Revolut? What inspired you and your other co-founders to say this is what you wanted to focus on with Native on the education?
Yeah, that's always an interesting question. So I think right now, at least for the last couple of years and going towards the next few years, a lot of rules, a lot of norms are being rewritten because how AI has changed the game in many ways. So the systems need to be changed. So this is a golden period in a way to rebuild stuff. And that's why you will see a lot of startups coming around. So we could have done anything literally under the sun, but we chose this specific thing. So first I will just mention briefly what Native is about. So Native essentially is an AI culturalization engine. Culturalization is a term that we use as a proxy for localization. So localization is the typical industry term that refers to different businesses taking all of their content or marketing pieces from their own language, which let's say happens to be English for the most part, to the different languages of the world. So if IKEA, which is a Swedish brand, needs to go to Malaysia, they will have to adapt to that language in the country, or India for that matter, or McDonald's or Coca-Cola. These are examples of big brands that have to localize. So what we have done or what we are building towards is a place, a platform where any business can come and drop their assets and get the assets authentically localized for literally the entire world. So this results in any and every business in the world being capable of expanding to any and every market in the world, which today doesn't happen so often because the barriers to localization have been pretty high because it's mostly a manual enterprise. And we are trying to automate that with AI, with the thesis that AI has reached a point where it kind of quote unquote understands cultures and the nuances. Coming back to why we chose this. So as I mentioned, I grew up in India, also different parts of India. My dad was in a government job, so he used to get transferred a lot. India speaks officially 22 languages, unofficially hundreds of languages, and thousands of subcultures inside the country. So I have grown in that environment of living across cultures. And then my move to different linguistic or cultural regions of Europe, all of this, so Swiss, French region, Germany, German, Belgium, Dutch speaking region or Flemish, and now UK. All of this has perhaps built a lot of empathy inside me that there is not just one culture or one language in the world, which is English, let's say, but there is a lot of things happening. And if you are building a business, you want to resonate with the entire world, you have to go and speak to them in their own language. So my background essentially kind of geared me up towards this. My co-founder comes from Tunisia. His name is Ahmed. He comes from Tunisia. Very similar background in that he has lived in different parts of the world, different parts of Europe first, and now he's in the US. And we both have the inherent understanding and empathy towards localization, culturalization, not being from the West originally. Then, secondly, when we were at Revolut, so I was there for 4 years. I worked in the fin crime department, KYC, fraud detection, computer vision. And in my journey, I saw Revolut firstly grow from recently being a unicorn back in 2019 to becoming a nearly $40 billion company towards the end of 2024. In that process, there is a lot of reasons why Revolut grew so big. One of them was also that Revolut really expanded across the entire world, going from a few countries in Europe to literally all kinds of countries. And I was part of making that expansion happen. And I saw firsthand how localization actually makes a lot of value addition in the business. And seeing that firsthand, I was almost having intuitions about, hey, can we make a playbook about this? Can we make this a recipe for all businesses? Well, for businesses that it is applicable to. And so I think Revolut's experience combined with my own personal experience has kind of led me to this path of building something for localization, or as we call it, bridging cultural barriers in the world.
I really love that because it really, from all of your experience of being international, kind of traveling through and having to experience different cultures, it's very a unique approach of having empathy towards the localization of what you're mentioning. So, with that, I'm real curious on it. As you're building this, and I think it's a very unique approach. Can you be able to kind of walk through, just for myself and the audience, of like what would a user's journey or for a client's journey look like for a business to use native?
Sure. So just to give actual real examples, we have been working with gaming companies. Games are global products by nature because there are no barriers. Everyone likes to play FIFA, be it from Japan or Germany. Or like FMCG products. So shampoo gets sold in Italy, but also in Brazil. So we are working with such companies, consumer brands, and in their marketing verticals. So what typically happens is today, like before native, let's say, they used to have a lot of marketing that needs to be done week in, week out, and month in, month out. These things would be done in tools like Photoshop, Figma. So they have a marketing campaign that is done in English, let's say, or in whatever first language that they have. And now they want to go to those other selected markets, which the company decides based on their strategies, where they are already present or they're willing to take bets on. The next step onwards is where native came and changed the game. So previously, the next step onwards looked like they would either have in-house people to do all of the localization manually, which involved two main steps. One is just translation. So you have a lot of copies in marketing, like Nike has Let's Do It. KFC has a brilliant example, and you should look this up. You will find this funny afterwards, which is KFC, when they went to China, they get localization done in Chinese. If you reverse, like translate that localization, the localized Chinese, I think it literally meant, it was almost like hazardous kind of a sentence where you will actually bite your fingers, like clinically remove your fingers or something. It just went in the wrong direction, the translation. And this is actually something that really happens a lot. So localization used to happen purely manually with first step of translation and the second step of design. So once you have the translation, let's say in a Word doc file, you would need to bring them back to those tools in the same kind of rotation, the color, the size. So native actually takes on both of these steps. we use the brands, whichever the brand is, their own brand voice. This is done through their historical data on whatever they have localized, but also just a brief about the company, what the company stands for. Like a Barbie product would be localized differently than a military tank, for example. So that, and then we also take on the design element. This is where our collective computer vision experience comes into play, where we are able to match the exact font, the exact style, the exact everything. So it fits in the same kind of, you call it technically artboards or market campaign assets. We literally place it as if you had the English asset, and now you suddenly have 10 more assets in Spanish, Portuguese, whichever languages you have asked us to do this for you. So this is how the flow looks like. They just deploy the assets on our platform and they get the results back in a few minutes.
That's great. With that, because of having it, because now we're expanding to a global side and utilizing AI, do you feel like these major shifts right now? What are you seeing this now with other companies with the help of AI and similar with native, that this is the trend it's going to go? Where do you see it coming in the next, by the time of the next 5 years or so with the expanse and rapid deployment of these AI agents?
This is this is such an interesting question, by the way, Solomon. And we are so lucky to witness this kind of a wave. It's literally a wave. I'll tell why. We have been doing this for 10 months. We have already in these 10 months seen such a rapid civilizational adaptation. So the entire paradigm I mentioned to you, especially the second step where it involves designing, suddenly includes artists or the creative people. And as it stands, and I also think of myself as part creative because I do a lot of music. So I understand, but I still will say that creative people tend to hate AI. They just are anti AI in general. Not all of them, but in general. So when we started this off, we had a lot of pushback, a lot of resistance from a lot of companies because they saw this as, you can't do this, like you can't do translation, it's a very human thing. You can't do design, it's a very human thing. You can't do all of this with AI, and I agree, we can't do all of that with AI. The goal is never to fully replace or fully automate, but the goal is to assist. AI is actually great in assisting you and in taking you from 0 to 80, 90, 99. We hope it's 99, so that you have 100x your capacity. We received a lot of pushback, but I'm saying in these last 10 months, we have already seen that change. So because the ultimate, the first principles thinking here is, this concept has arrived in the civilization that AI will change stuff. So it's a force that will keep going. The thrust will keep happening on its own. If not me, someone else, some other person, maybe more brilliant than both of us combined, will come and do this anyway. So this has arrived to change how things are done. So I think people are slowly adapting to it because it's happening everywhere now. You have if you remember, there was this Coca-Cola ad campaign around the Christmas time where they did the entire thing, the Santa going in a fancy truck in snow. All of that was AI generated. A lot of fully AI generated clips are becoming viral. So people are identifying that this thing has arrived in some sense. So I think from having 90% of the people pushing back, we are now, I would say, in 50-50 in our personal experience, pushback regime. And now I think we are going towards more and more acceptance. I think when you asked 5 years, I personally would like to believe that it's going to become 99% of the people will just accept it, because it's been the same thing with any piece of technology that has arrived. When tractors were first invented, I'm pretty sure people did not see that as obvious, like, okay, this is how we'll do it. They opposed it because they wanted to do it manually. So I think this will just be a matter of time and not 5 years. I feel our progress is really exponential. So what has happened in the last 1 year, equivalent progress will happen in the next 6 months or 3 months.
No, and then with this side, do you feel like within the next not even 5 years, what is you think that's going to be really the tipping point that really shifts creative industry from that acceptance from that small to like a near universal adoption of the AI, like for specifically for native?
there is no like it's not like a, I can't give you a mathematical answer that there is this Turing test equivalent here. It's more of a sociological phenomenon as well, where we are collective, as collective beings, always looking at, oh, VO3 came out, so it can generate these level of videos, so people test it to its limits. I think the limits are still defined by, first, you cannot generate, if I'm not mistaken, more than a minute long video coherently, atomically on its own. You cannot go deep into a particular kind of domain. So let's say you want to generate lectures on medical stuff. That's very fine grained and like very deep into one particular domain, and it does not work well. So there are limits right now which are very obvious. I think as all of these different labs, AI labs, are working on making this better, I think we will start going some like one defined vertical of the industry by vertical and start capturing them. Today, I think it's really at that stage where it's knocking at the door, that we are coming to automate a lot of this. And I would still like to think that creatives, if they embrace these tools, they would benefit so much from this, because what they used to do by hand, like if we think of my favorite cartoons from Pixar or any of those big studios, they used to be completely manual. Imagine them having to just do the start and the end frame. Everything else is filled between. The creativity still stays, but the mechanic part in between actually is taken care of. That's the way I would take it if I was in their shoes. But yeah, I think the tipping point is a very interesting question. For me, it's a sociological phenomenon. We will see that happening on the Twitters and the LinkedIn's of the world, where a new model will come and someday it will just open the door. Like the knocking of the door is already happening, and the opening of the door is about to happen.
Yeah, because I think even with now, if with even with myself and my business utilizing the AI, and even educating and working with our clients here at Solanox, it's becoming, because there's sometimes of a disconnect of having it to where what's the actual true outcomes of how we can integrate these systems of AI into the business and actually fulfill the big three, on fulfillment and its sales and operations. Like how do we effectively use it? And even for myself, is I'm really looking for the AI part of it, and as you mentioned with the culturalization, is to really effectively have a true assistant on this and help build out and really activate it. And then also educating the clients, and how can we utilize this effectively in your business to really go forward. So I'd love that. I'm curious on just with the current state for Native right now, what has been working really well with you guys are, and in terms of that, I'm curious as Shasan, are you focused on specific metrics? I know you said you've been then doing it for the past 10 months and you've been rapidly growing. You've been seeing a lot of success on that. Are you looking more for adoption, for customer adoption, or usage retention? Like what has been on that side working well, and those specific metrics you're looking at? I'm curious.
Yeah, one of those questions we keep thinking about almost every day. One of the key metrics, so to speak, or the key factors that we have had in mind is, so the story goes, we started off our journey and you do not know where this is going to lead you. So we started off with localization for games, in game, inside game, to localize stuff. It was super hard to sell, multitude of reasons. One is it's all text to text only, and that is something we thought, there is no design component involved, and there is no brand voice, so to speak. It's just a game's voice, and it was almost possible to do that straight up with LLMs as it is, instead of using us. Secondly, game studios are one of the hardest entities to sell to for their game localization, because then they have to give away their games before release to another entity to do all of the localization, which is a risky. You might hear a lot of stories about games getting leaked before they got even released. So it was a hard task to sell them. In that journey, we realized, let's step back, and we somehow entered into comics. Comic books are visual medium with a lot of text. Imagine a manga comic that should legally be kind of localized into the French, German, English market. A lot of illegal localization happens. So you can go to a lot of websites where you will see people just manually typing badly written English in like done inside Microsoft PowerPoint or something. But we got a lot of deals on the comics front because we again had the computer vision experience, and we were able to translate or transcreate rather the entire storyline, all the speech bubbles, all the onomatopoeias. So we went there, and we were pretty content with that, but wrongly so. And then we happened to get backed by A16 the speed run, which was an incredible moment in our journey building native. Going to San Francisco, doing the speedrun program, we realized that our ambition is way too small. Like comics are just like a few $1 million market at best. So we started looking into a much bigger universe, which happened to be the marketing industry in general. So if we use native to localize any marketing campaign for any product. So from then onwards, I think one of the guiding factors for us has been how diverse can our product be in terms of what kinds of industries can use us. So first off, we started getting used by the gaming studio marketing verticals, not the game localization, but the marketing localization. And that really did well for us. We are continuing to build a lot of momentum there. But again, keeping the diversification in mind, coming from the background of Revolut, which is fintech, and fintech is also a global product in a way. We also started getting clients inside the fintech vertical. So that was the second. And then most recently, you can't not think about the consumer products that you grew up with that are available in different parts of the world. So the FMCG vertical. So we also started getting work with beauty brands. So lip liners, eyeliners, going from US to Germany to France. So this diversification basically tells you the, so to speak, the total addressable market that is so huge. It suddenly multiplies, right? Like you can basically do this for any and every company in the world if they are willing to go beyond their original market. So that has been one guiding principle to basically diversify the kind of clients that we have had. The knots for us, and the one thing that we care the most about when serving clients has been, what is the time as soon as they drop their asset, what is the time that they get the asset back? Our goal is to reduce that to like a zero 0.1 second. You drop it, and you imagine a world where you just have, like, even for your podcast, if tomorrow you just want to test how will your podcast do in Dubai, and you can use 11 labs to do all the audio, all the subtitles, and then you also market it inside Dubai using native, using your campaigns, and we do like insanely amazing Arabic work on top of that, which speaks in the Arabic dialect of UAE. Then you get to test it immediately, and who knows if that works very well for you. That's the beauty of the world. You never know what can pop coming from the US or UK, in Japan or in Korea, because that happens with movies and TV series. A lot of movies from Iran do so well in US. A lot of TV serials from China do so well in India. Nobody would have thought, but it's just a matter of opening that to the new market. So yeah, going back to the question, we are heavily trying to diversify our clients so that we can capture a huge market.
Yeah, so with that, I'm always so because you have so many different verticals on. I love it from the manga, from the video game aspect, where you really started, and then with FinOps. With that difference for the localization, are there certain foundational steps? Does it change in how you go about in providing the outcome for the client because it's a completely different industry, or is it the same because you're having to deal with language localization? Like, how does that work, especially even in the beauty market? As you said, I'm like fascinated by that.
Yeah, initially, when we go to a new vertical, we have to spend a lot of time just doing custom work. But the awesome feeling comes from realizing that we can actually have a same engine that is doing the work for all of them. It is possible because ultimately, if you think about it, if you were a human that was working for L'Oreal, which is like a fashion, like a consumer product brand, and suddenly you moved to Riot Games and you were supposed to do localization, as a human, if you were forced to do this, you would basically read through what is Riot's principles on how do they localize stuff, like what are the kinds of words they use, what is the like the feeling of localization, and AI can grasp that if you provide enough data. So we have the same underlying, the motherhood of our backend, which basically plugs into the data sets for these different kinds of clients, understands the market, understands how they speak to the French versus the Japanese market, and is able to then kind of fill the gaps, imitate. Localization is almost never about thinking out of the box. Let me remind you, so at Native, we do not do 0 to 1. So we do not produce completely new marketing materials yet for companies. We take the existing marketing material and transcreate this for the other market. So this task is also creative, but it's not the creative to the level where only humans should and can do it. AI can also understand and imitate in the fine grained, sophisticated manner how to transcreate from English lines from the shampoo ad to Japanese lines equivalent.
Okay. And then with that, with having to adjust for that, what have you seen as the most challenging part of like educating companies on the difference between the translation and that true localization part of that?
In so many things that we have to work with our clients, and have been very grateful to have some really good customers who are also willing to, like, participate in this rather than just delegating this to us. Think of think of things like keywords. There are proprietary words that you do not need to translate. How do you handle them? Think of, sometimes we have to kind of instruct them almost like, hey, this might not fly in the Arabic market. So we have something called the culture inspector, which looks at the marketing asset and decides if it is safe to deploy in this or that country. Beef is not that safe to deploy in a marketing campaign in India. Skeletons, not so safe in China. Promiscuity, not so safe in the Middle East. So there are like so many examples like this, and yeah, shockingly, a lot of people do not know or realize that. So then that's one aspect in which we have to speak with them, understand. There are so many nuances. Like, we ask them, like, do you want Japanese vertical, because that's how Japanese people love to do the titles at least, or do you still just want to do this like horizontal? And then sometimes they ask, oh, what are you saying, like, why are you even asking for the vertical? And then they need to be told that there is this thing. So yeah, it's a lot of education that happens. Sometimes we get educated from them that this does not look good, this is why. So yeah, I mean, it's a, oddly enough, we are building automation for this, but there is still a lot of humanness in the whole engine, which gets baked in more and more as we progress through the days.
Yeah, and it's as you even mentioned, that's something wouldn't even consider on the Japanese market, that they like looking down more than more English we look through on the horizontal side. So yeah, I think this plays a part in what you mentioned earlier on just your experience of having to travel around, and so how does you and your team on this like really these nuances of different cultures, of different languages, like it seems like you have to always kind of keep that in mind. So how are you be able to educating when you go into new markets and so forth else on the side? That's just
Yeah, I mean, just as an aside, like, our goal is to have like a team that involves at least one person from every country of the world. So, at some point, it's actually very likely to happen in this age where we have like a multicultural teams anyway. And also for investments, we always look for partners who at least have some empathy, or at least have one feet in some other country, and not just purely based in the UK or the US, who are agnostic about the rest of the world. So we have that mindset baked in. But yeah, like, going to completely new markets. So we had an ask from a client of ours, like, hey, I want to go to Lithuania, but I have no idea like what they do, or and why should I trust you, because none of you are from Lithuania. And then I had to show actually a live demo on, now that you have told me that you want to go to Lithuania, your brand has never been in Lithuania historically. But guess what? Brands that are similar to you, that have been, there is data about them that I can get officially, and now I can emulate that. So in like a follow-up call, I showed him the results, and he was blown away because of the similarity of existing brands that go in that country, that you can automate now. You don't need to hire people from the competitor who did that for them. You can actually abstract this knowledge out into AI. So that's the one example of where like we handle different parts of the world just
yeah
using data.
yeah. And this is great as you kind of scale up. So would you say, like, for the next 6 to 12 months for Native and just for you and your team, what are you really focused on what success looks like? What are, some bottlenecks that you're even overcoming, and, what's those next milestones?
Yeah, so one common milestone bottleneck that exists for most early stage companies, which is this is more of a timing thing, which is we are living in this age of AI. Everything gets disrupted time and again. So how do you keep yourself, like keep your neck above all of these rapid advancements? So how do you keep your tool relevant amongst like a myriad of tools that are getting available more and more? So that is something we constantly work on, constantly keep our eyes on what's out there right now. More on the GTM side, what I mentioned to you so far is us reaching out to individual companies and brands. But if you really think about it, what is really the ultimate goal for us is to actually partner with agencies, because most brands of the world do not do localization themselves. They typically reach out to agencies who do this day in, day out, and they do it manually. So one of our milestones is to actually partner with agencies now in parallel with partnering with individual companies, because that basically you plug into this mothership of this happening day in, day out inside those agencies, as opposed to localization happening once in a month in individual companies. So that's one. And yeah, in general, as I told you about the diversification, we want to go more diverse and we want to deepen this. So when I said FMCG, I just mentioned a beauty brand, but FMCG is a whole world unto itself. So we want to deepen inside those verticals, get a lot more customers. It's never enough, as many as we can get. And yeah, one thing that keeps guiding us as a philosophy is I'm especially thrilled about opening up businesses that any company has never even thought about. So people don't really think about going to Tajikistan, for example. I would like to believe that there are people who can buy stuff in in Tajikistan. It's just a matter of were you able to reach it. And if there are no governmental regulations, that's a different story. But if there are none regulations like that, just because you didn't know the language, you should not be restricted. So that's something I'm especially happy when I see a customer signed up for a language that we never expected them to sign up for.
And I think that would you be fair? It's fair to say that you like really looking at it, because I never even thought about the local. It's something. It's so interesting about business because there's so many different avenues that you don't think of that companies have to input this in.
Yeah.
And have to think of, especially when we're in a global market. We have to think of those are just those nuances. So I love that what you and your team is doing is really opening the doors to really connecting with on a human level. It doesn't matter. It's breaking those language barriers and being able to fully understand that. And as you said, like you wanted to kind of bring forward that Kazakhstan on having it to where if there's something that's interesting on that someone can go and learn more and have a business between that. So I love that you're having that. Would you say that's really the major challenge that you and Native or you and your co-founder are really working towards and solving in this space?
100%. And also to like make things more concrete about why this, as you mentioned, like this doesn't sound so evident, right? Like why is this a problem? Like many people do not even still empathize. Someone who always lived in New York or in London and grew up and never went outside, with due respect, they do not empathize with it as much. But to make things concrete, I posted about this last week. OpenAI, which is supposed to be the killer for all of this, right? People will always tell you that I can go to ChatGPT and do my own localization. OpenAI posted a job opening last week for a localization manager for their own company, with a salary of, if I'm not mistaken, $310,000 per annum, which is quite a handsome salary even by San Francisco standards. So there you go. Even the topmost AI company also still needs localization to go into the different parts of the world. And that's how important it is actually for all the big companies or any company for that matter. It's just limited by your imagination on how big you can grow your size of the market, essentially.
You've really educated me, man, today, because that's such an avenue that I've never thought of, but it's such an integral piece. And not only on the business side, but I think just the whole social dynamic of it, really bringing us all together on that side with the usage of AI and then what Native is doing. So like if you had and she's on like a magic wand, having it to like if you could use AI regardless of whatever it can do. Like, what would you use to help, whether in your day to day or for and just overall? What would you have that be done?
I have a silly answer to this and maybe a more serious one. So, one of the things we realize, this is essentially B2B, right? We are trying to sell to businesses. So, doing sales inside B2B, the entire sales cycle is so slow. People are so slow in responding. This is something you realize when you switch from being like an employee to being a founder. My new pet peeve is out of office replies because I'm just done with them. So if I had a magic wand, I would just make people faster to reply, and maybe like being able to predict. I was speaking to my co-founder about this. We should maybe build a model to predict people's out of office, time blocks that we can optimize the times we reach out to them. But on a more serious note, if I had a magic wand, what would I do? Is like when we speak with people, when we try to sell native to people or talk about native to people, I still feel like I speak with different kinds of job position holders, which is growth officer, chief growth officer, chief marketing officer, demand generation manager, localization manager. So except for localization manager, which is very obvious, who's doing this day in day out, the others also, they could think of increasing your market by going to different countries of the world. But I still am seeing that a lot of people fail to understand the power behind this. And a lot of times this happens that the time hasn't arrived yet for the most part. Like people are not still waking up to the idea of, hey man, I could go to India. I could just open up 1.5 billion new potential customers just by going to the different languages of India. So if I had a magic wand, I would just change their mindset about it, and just make them aware. Even if you don't use native, just go, just look out at the bigger picture. Like there is so much happening in the world, and that you can utilize much bigger market than you think you can.
Yeah, I think that I love that aspect on both of them. You brought up before I go, before we kind of wrap up on the side. I think, and especially for me, I fully understand of changing that mindset of what you were saying on becoming like an engineer aspect on your day to day work to now becoming a founder. And I think even for me, for me explaining with me, in the past Solanox and having to think on this and working with other leaders, like that mind shift of having it from that engineer, from that day to day work, from coming to now you're building something new and you're having to work with that. So was that an easy transition for you as you've kind of switched over to now becoming mindset? Now you're speaking with and trying to educate, CMOs, CEOs, and so forth else, or were there some gaps to where you've learned and grew on that aspect? Does that make sense on the question?
Yeah, 100%. You will see I'm pretty active on social media, especially LinkedIn, for this reason where we are also kind of educating people. So just to make sure that people understand why what we are doing is actually important and it's not another flashy AI thing that we just. So I mean, I am 33 now. I would not be doing just AI for the sake of doing AI, because I have been in the field for a long time. I have seen through like the different ups and downs, what is flashy, what is not. This is more of a like a cultural phenomenon where its time will come. It has come in pockets, but for people to realize fully that languages will exist, even if there are apps like Duolingo, which is great, you get to learn new languages, but people will exist to live in their own cultures, in their own societies. However, great products can come from anywhere, and great products need to go everywhere. Just like the best Netflix shows, they are always localized, and they're always present in all the different countries Netflix that you watch from. Similarly, the best products, they need to go everywhere. And people fail to realize that when I say everywhere, there's a whole world. Like even for me, by the way, I have not been to Africa yet. I fully empathize, I understand, but like on the top countries with the most number of languages spoken in them, India is still third. Second is Nigeria from Africa, and first is Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea has like 800 and some 80 languages. Nigeria has like 500 or 600 languages. People don't realize that there is like Sure, there is an argument for purchasing power parity, but still, someone can do the math and tell me that 350 odd million people in the US compared to these like billions of people, there has to be some economic incentive to go out and sell your products in different markets. So this awareness, I think, yeah, I'm trying my best to like market this through Native, and also educating like the CMOs, the chief content officers, and so on about this. And I'm firmly like very optimistic about the fact that we are bridging those gaps through different medium, including Native.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Native's journey, and especially if you just again really connecting us, despite of all the pieces. It's actually, as you said, with Nigeria, but having multiple different facets of the language and so forth. So I'm really looking forward to it. So she's like, where can people find you to learn more? Where can they like follow? As you said, you're really prominent on LinkedIn. Where can they learn more on Native if they wanted to reach out and so forth else?
Yeah, I'm available on LinkedIn. My name Ashish Ranjan Jha, which is the middle name. Also on Twitter. My username used typically happens to be ARJ, which is Ashish Ranjan Jha, and 7192, which is my date of birth. So ARJ 7192 on X, on LinkedIn. Sometimes we post on YouTube as well. So I'm also on YouTube, and soon in Instagram and so on. The one thing is, to be a founder today, you almost also have to be an influencer, because the product by itself does not sell. So you have to stand by your product and like really go out there. So yeah, I'm pretty active on socials, not on Facebook though.
Yeah. And then where people can find more on Native, they can just go to the website and so forth else to learn more about the product and so forth, right?
100%. So it's usenative.com. The company name is Native. We always get confused with Use Native, but it's just the domain that we got. So it's USENATIV without the E. So usenative.com is the website. And yeah, you can always book a call for anyone who is interested to learn more about this. And we also are doing self-serve. So anyone can actually sign up or log in into the platform and try it out on any language by themselves.
Perfect. I love that. So for anyone else, they can go on to where she's mentioning, try it out the product, and then you can reach out and so forth. You want to add that into your business. So I love it. So Ashish, thanks so much for coming on to the show. It was great having you. You really opened my mind to just so many different possibilities of having for this localization, because that's not even something that I even considered, but it's so integral. And I love like what you and your team are doing. And I'm really looking forward to it, man.
Thank you so much, Aman, and I'm glad I actually happened to tell you something new, and we shared something new and novel today.
Perfect. All right. For everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you stayed with us, we really appreciate it. So look forward to you next time on the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the AI Advantage. If this episode sparked an idea, share it with your network. Subscribe for more no-fluff conversations on how smart tech drives real outcomes. And if you're ready to future-proof your business, let's connect at solonox.net.